Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Software Success. I'm Ashley Jones, and I'll be hosting this presentation today. And as you know, here on Software Success, we talk all things embroidery software. So we've got a fun show for you as always, and you guys know I love sharing my love of software and what it can do to help make your embroidery life easier. Here at Dime, we have a huge selection of embroidery software that does all kinds of different things. A lot of them really just a one-click option to produce the results that you're going for. So I always am excited to share different things that you can do with your software. So let's see who's joining us. If you are new here, tell us over in the chat. Even if you've been here before, tell us hi over in the chat. We'll give just a few minutes for everybody to join. I think that today we're going to have lots of viewers with lots of questions. So I can't wait to see everyone and hear what questions you guys have. So thanks for being here, Palma. Good to see you from Gresham, Oregon. Thanks for being here, Patricia Roberts. Good to see you as well from West Virginia. Ingrid, thanks for being here as well from Belgium. So very nice to have you, Ingrid. Kathy from Missouri. Laura, always good to see you too from Lincoln, Nebraska. Marianne from Rainy, Ohio. Whew. So many people here that, like we said, we always recognize. So I know a lot of you guys are learning tons about your software. Linda Johnson, always good to see you here too. So thanks for being here, Augusta. North Carolina. So many tons of people. Hey, Ann, good to see you as well. Amy, nice to see you. Harriet Ann Palmer and Reen Wilcoxon. You guys know her from Embroidery Gardens. Patricia, my friend Bet from Arizona. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. I cannot believe we're even saying those words. So Rosalind, thanks for being here. And Jill, my friend from Tennessee, glad to have you. Delta, thanks for joining. And so I'm sure there's still some more that are joining us, but we will go ahead and get started with our topic today because, as always, this hour goes really quickly. So I thought this would be a great topic since we are approaching the holiday season. I think that this time of year we're making quilts for family members, for gifts, maybe even for charities. And so I wanted to share with you how you can create quilting around your embroidery. It's really easy in our Dime software, and I'm going to do this similar to a couple of weeks ago where I went through all of our software and tried to figure out different ways to create quilting around your embroidery. And so our traditional way of doing it in our software is like you see here on the screen, where we've got, a quilting kind of fill that surrounds our quilting. But I did come up with some other ways that you can avoid embroidery designs in some of our other programs that don't have these built-in fills. So I wanted to share those with you. So no matter which piece of Dime software you have, there is going to be a way to create quilting around your embroidery design, whether it is drawing it with your artwork tool or built-in fills or built-in shapes. We're going to talk about all of those instances as well. So let's head over, and I've got some images that I'm going to show you. And so let's start by talking about Perfect Embroidery Pro. Now, Dime has several different quilting particular software, like quilting specific software, and those certainly can create quilting designs. But originally, this was the very first software that Dime started with, is Perfect Embroidery Pro. And it is our full-featured digitizing and editing software, and it has built-in quilting fills. It doesn't have all of the ones that we have in My Quilt Embellisher, but look at these 5 different options here. So, and you can see that all of these, I just use the same embroidery design. The embroidery design does not matter, and I'm going to show you how to create this custom shape around it so that you can fill that with like these different things. So your motif fill is a great way to create quilting. The contour fill, I really love that there in the top middle. I love the look that gave. And it's just contouring the shape of the embroidery design. And then shape fill, stippling fill, and wave fill If you were with me 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, creating sketch-looking embroidery designs, we actually used some of these same features, but we put the stitches close together, and for quilting, we're actually gonna spread them further apart, and so it's just kind of some similar features, but you're using it for a different purpose, okay? So that's Perfect Embroidery Pro. Now, you don't have to have Perfect Embroidery Pro to do what we're talking about today. My Quilt Embellisher is Dime's most powerful quilting program. It does have all of these options you see here. Now, let me back up one. Do you see that I've highlighted in yellow here the wave stitch? That wave stitch is unique to Perfect Embroidery Pro. That's why I highlighted that. And you can see it's straight lines that kind of have a little bit of a wave to them, and you can adjust the amount of the wave, okay? But you can produce that wave look in other software by using like your shape fill and things like that. So we'll see more of that as we start to talk. So now my Quilt Embellisher has some of the same items like the motif fill, the contour fill, shape fill, and stippling, but unique to my Quilt Embellisher software is the advanced stippling. It is a huge selection of different quilting fills, and the echo shape. You know, that is our quilting fill where we're just continually doing lines that actually contour the shape of our design, and we're just building those rings. Now, you can see the difference here in echo. It just continues to echo that same shape, whereas contour gives you a little bit different look because as it's creating that, it's kind of following these other shapes as well. Advanced stippling and echo are specific to are unique, I should say, to my Quilt Embellisher. So those are the two main programs, and we're going to see how to do this. But there are ways to quilt around your embroidery design with other dime programs. So if you have My Quilt Planner, which I bet a lot of you guys do, it's one of our most popular programs. It's for designing your quilt layout when you're doing quilting on your embroidery machine. You can actually bring in designs that are not quilting into this program. Look at my image here. You can see that I've got my little pine cone applique design in the center. It's not a quilting design, but I was able to open it in my Quilt Embellisher so that I can create my quilting design to avoid it. And you can see here that I brought in a quilting design. It doesn't go exactly around my embroidery like the others that we just saw, but this is a way to create a quilting design that's going to avoid your embroidery. Use that as a reference, and then of course you can delete this before you start your quilting. So my Quilt Embellisher or my Quilt Planner is another one that you can do. So and then My Block Piecer, if you have My Block Piecer, this is a program that you can build files that piece blocks in the hoop. And it has thousands of built-in blocks that can be pieced in the hoop. Well, even though they're meant for piecing in the hoop, because this program has the ability to convert to a run stitch, you can actually use those files. Look at this one. This is one of my star blocks that I just turned into a run stitch. So this design here, depending on the size of my embroidery, if I had created an embroidery file or used an embroidery file that would fit in the center of my star, then that's quilting that would be around my design. And the same thing here, this little pinwheel is just a run stitch from the block. But look what I did here also in My Block Piecer is I used some triangles in the corners and to give me a little bit of quilting. But this little squiggly line here, I drew that on the screen with my pen tool. And I'll show you how I did that as well. So My Block Piecer is another great way to create quilting. Now, believe it or not, in Special FX software, if you have that program, you can do the same task, and it has the embossed feature, which uses decorative fill stitches to flatten the nap of the fabric. Well, if you increase the density of those embossed stitches, then you get a quilting type design. And the same is true for the mylar fill and the chenille fill that's built into that software. Those are run stitches. You can create them to go around your embroidery, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So believe it or not, there's so many ways to do it. Now, if you didn't see one of your programs listed there, you still could create your own quilting stitches around a design by drawing on the screen or using the built-in artwork shapes that are in the software. And you can do that in all of these software that I've listed here. So we've already seen Perfect Embroidery Pro, My Quilt Embellisher, My Block Piecer, but Vintage Embroidery has the ability to convert to a run stitch, My Lace Maker, Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, and Special FX. So all of those programs in some way or another, you can create quilting around your embroidery design. So I'm going to show you in all of those different ways today. So I'm going to head over to my software and let's start with this method right here where we're creating a quilting fill that goes around our embroidery. Now, this type of quilting you're going to do with Perfect Embroidery Pro or with My Quilt Embellisher. So let's go to a work page here. We'll start from scratch. I actually have one set up, but hey, I'm going to start it from scratch for you. Okay, so first I'm going to bring in the embroidery design. So let's say I'm going to use one from Patch and Applique Maker, but this design can come anywhere. Okay, so in my applique, I've got this, and I could use any of these. It doesn't have to be the pine cones. I just like the pine cones. They're kind of wintry, and we're, well, headed that way at full speed ahead. And so this design, so let's say you've already stitched this design, you can still use it as a template. It doesn't have to be stitched the second time, and I'll show you what I mean. So I've got design. If I want to create quilting around it, I need two more things to make this happen. I need an artwork shape that is going to be my barrier. Okay, so I just used my artwork tool and the rectangle, and then I just click and drag that rectangle around. Now I'm going to select it and let's set it. I'm going to make this, let's make this a little bit smaller. And the only reason I'm doing this is just so that it doesn't take so long to generate the fill. I'm going to do like a 6x6 block here for the size that I want my quilting. Okay. So I've got my artwork set to 6x6. My design is in the center. I'm going to select everything, drag a box around it, or Control A, and use your center alignment tool. If you don't have this one on your toolbar, you can click the horizontal and then the vertical, and that gets the job done with 2 clicks. Or if you have the center align, you just click the center align. Okay. So now the artwork here, that's going to be my barrier for where my quilting is going to end. Now, I also need a barrier around the design. So I'm going to select the design, right mouse click, and I'm going to use utility and create outline. Now, depending on which program you in, create outline may be on your toolbar. So it can be there or under your right mouse click. So now I'm going to click preview, and you can see that outline around the edge. And that is going to create the barrier to prevent my quilting stitches from going through my embroidery design. So, and then I'm just going to say, okay. And now I'm going to head over here to my sequence view in the bottom right, and let me just hide my design. So I just turned off the little eyeball. And so this is what we've just done here. So that actually looks like a heart, like, right? That's what it made me think of, like 2 hearts, like an actual heart. But what we're doing is we've created these 2 artworks because we want the quilting to go in between them. And so if I select this box, and I choose to fill that with a quilting fill. So I'm going to, in Perfect Embroidery Pro, I'm going to go over to my effects panel, and let's just click the stippling. Okay. Do you see how the stippling filled that entire box? Well, that's not what we wanted. We don't want it to be behind our design. So I'm going to do an undo. So that's my Control Z, or the undo key on my keyboard. So now to make the quilting only go between this artwork and this artwork, I select both of them. So click and drag, Control A, and then click this combine option. So combine sees them as one object. So now when I click my stippling, you can see that it is going to leave that hole in the center there. And let's go back and turn on embroidery design so we can see what I mean. Okay, so you can see that even these little points here, it has completely avoided that for that quilting design. So the stippling, remember, this is in My Quilt Embellisher and in Perfect Embroidery Pro that you can choose the stippling option. But I also have other options here. I'm going to change this to, say, the motif fill here, and you see how tight that is? For quilting, because it is just all run stitches, you want to just increase this pattern length. And I'm going to go up to 15. And I mean, I think that's pretty good. But if you like quilting to be even looser than that, you can increase it even more. But I'm going to go to this diamond option here and do apply and change it to that setting. So, and I actually really kind of like that. But I wanted to go to this one specifically because I wanted to show you these like broken areas here. Depending on what you are using this design for, most likely you'll be doing it on, an individual block. So you would want that run stitch to go all the way around. Well, so what you can do is just make a copy and a paste of this exact one. So if I just say copy and then paste, and then I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see that I've got another copy, and I'm going to undo to put it back into position. And with that one selected, and I can also select it over here in my sequence view here. So, oh, did I lose one? I think I accidentally deleted it. So copy and paste it again. So there's my second one. And now if I just click my run option, actually my run digitizing, so I need to go down here to my effects panel and click this run option. It converts the shape to just a run. You can see it on the outline and the interior, which was where our artwork was. So I'm going to undo to put that back together, click away so that you can see. Now we've got that nice clean edge. So it's going to do that quilting stitch all through. And then the last thing it'll do is come around and do the run stitch around the outside and even around the design. So if I go over here, I'm going to change the color of this. So I'm going to right mouse click on the red and just hide it so that we can see it. Now those broken lines, the reason that you get this is because the software is doing its best to create this stitch and not overrun itself if it doesn't have to. So sometimes that means stitching out to here, going across and maybe coming down and going up. And then sometimes this gets missed here because it's not backtracking along the outside. So that's why it's nice to be able to just put that extra run stitch around the edge there. So, so that is kind of the normal way that we create quilting around our embroidery design. You have an embroidery design and then you create a shape and then you also create that barrier. So let's do it again with a little bit different design. So for this, let's go to maybe special FX. I'll go to the design. We'll just use a different design. And then I'm going to use this butterfly design here. And the same thing applies here. I need a barrier around the design and then a barrier where my quilting is going to end. So now that we've got this selected, let's just go ahead and create the outline around the design. And then I've got a 0.8, and I think that's fine. I like it kind of close, and I'm going to say okay. Okay. And you can see that it's put it over here as my artwork. Now let's create our rectangle. And this doesn't have to be a rectangle. It could be a square, a diamond, an oval. If you're trying to fit this to a diamond shape on your block, you could create the diamond shape. It does not have to be a square. So if I select this and everything and just make sure I've got everything nice and center. And the same is true here. I select the two artwork and I need to combine them. That's the next step. And then now I can add my quilting fill. So this time I'm going to do this wave fill stitch here. And so you can see that is extremely tight, but it is run stitches. So if I just increase that number and spread those stitches out a little bit further, you get the look of that quilting. So, because these are just run stitches that are going to run and then quilt around. And the same is true. You can see that I've got these broken areas because it's wanting to run and not stop, which we want. So if you select this, copy it, paste it, and then turn that second one that you just copied into the run stitch, then you've got a nice clean edge around the outside. Okay. So now I'm going to undo that and let's just go back to just our shape with the butterfly. So let's say you want to quilt as large as your hoop. So nearly every dime software has the built-in hoops that you can select from. And so I wanted to just kind of show you this example. And so I'm going to choose, say, like a 5x7, just so it doesn't take as long to fill this. And so let's say that you wanted to fill your hoop with with quilting. Now, the hoop is just a visual aid, but it does help me kind of draw my box there, and I can draw that inside my hoop. Now, if I wanted to make 100% sure it's going to go all the way to the edge, I can make sure that that box is as big as what my sewing field has the capability of sewing. So I'm going to flip to metric. So I'm going to go right mouse click on my ruler bar. So right mouse click and then metric. And then I can actually set these numbers exactly. So a 5x7 hoop is a 180 millimeter by 130 millimeter, and or vice versa. If you have it rotated the other direction. And so now when I combine this with my outline, so let's select the artwork outline around the butterfly and our rectangle that represents our hoop, combine them, and now the software sees them as one object. So now I can put my different quilting fills in that artwork shape. So I select it in Perfect Embroidery Pro. That's in my effects panel. And for this one, let's do the contour, see what it looks like. So I'm going to click the contour. Now you can see, again, that's pretty tight quilting. So I would increase that and see if I can get a distance I like, and look at that. So that would fill my 5x7 hoop if I wanted to, and that's the contour option there. Okay, so now I am going to let's go back and do a different one. So let's say you have a decorative quilting file in the center. So in my quilt embellisher, I'm going to click my quilt embellisher option over here. You have these embellishments, borders, and decor. These are built in designs into that software. Well, the embellishments are actually quilting files that fit different shapes like circles, squares, triangles, and there's usually 4 matching ones so that you can coordinate this. But sometimes this decorative quilting is really attractive and would be nice to create quilting around that. So for instance, let's take a look at the butterfly here. So this is a run stitch embroidery design that would be great for quilting a decorative spot on your quilt. Now these actually already have the outline around them, so I don't have to create one. But I just wanted to show you a different kind of quilting. And for this one, I'm going to use a built-in block from my quilt embellisher. So my quilt embellisher and my block piecer have thousands of artwork blocks built into the software so that you can select them and create quilting designs to fit them, but you can also piece them in the hoop if you're working with my block piecer. So let me go back there. I saw one that I probably won't be able, I was just clicking along, so I probably don't even know which one it's in or how to get back to it. So this one right here is what I was going to do. So since that has that center element, I'm going to send that to the back so we can see our design in front of it. Now you can see my design fits into that center portion there. So if I select that center square and my artwork outline here, in that center square, and do the same thing. I'm going to click my combine key, and you can see it kind of cuts that hole out. That's the same thing that happens in the other instance, but we don't see it because our artwork around the outside is not filled in. Actually, I'm over the edge here a little bit, I see on both of these. So let me undo and resize that a little bit. So undo, and then I'm going to select my design and my artwork, and let's just shrink it down smaller so that it fits in our block. Okay, and then I'll put that in the center. Make sure I'm all good and lined up, and then I'm going to select that artwork again and the block piece behind it and combine. And then the same thing is true here. So my quilt embellisher, you have all of those built-in quilting fills that we talked about. And in this case, I can echo the shape of the design in the center by choosing the shape echo, or not the shape echo, the echo quilting, sorry, is the one I want. And you can see that it does that quilting around the edge. I'm going to make it darker so that we can really see it here. And so you can see that we've only created the quilting in this center part because I borrowed that block. If I wanted this to extend all the way out to the edge of my block, I'm going to do the undo key. And instead of using this block, let's draw a rectangle or it's really a square here that I'm creating around my block. So now when I select that artwork and the artwork that's around my quilting and combine them, notice now you don't see that any kind of cutout because I've actually combined it with an artwork that doesn't have a fill in it. And now when we choose our quilting fill, so I'm going to go over to my quilt embellisher. I'm going to choose that echo quilt again. And you'll see that it echoes it throughout the entire block. So let me hide that block so that you can really see that quilting. So now it's going all the way out to the outside edge of that block. So remember, now I didn't draw my square exactly right. I see some things peeking out, but I can resize it here to make sure that it falls within my block and it'll regenerate. So, and then if we change that quilting to a dark color, then hopefully you can see it along the edges there of the colored block. So I'm going to darken it. So now you can see that it really goes all the way out to the edge. Okay. So to create the quilting around a design in this fashion, you need the design and you need to create an outline around it. And then you need to create a barrier for how far is the quilting design going to go. Is that going to be to the size of my quilt? Is it going to, or to the size of my hoop? Is it going to be as big as my block? Is it just going to be an area in the center of my block? So you'll need that barrier for that particular instance. Okay. So this is using quilting fills. And these quilting fills, again, in my quilt embellisher, you've got all of these options here. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. I think it'll make more sense because we've got the visual here. So in Perfect Embroidery Pro, these are the ones that I can do. So if you want to create this like I'm doing here, Perfect Embroidery Pro has these different options here, 5 different fill options for your quilting. And my quilt embellisher has these 6 options. There is lots of quilting in PEP, but there's even more quilting options in my quilt embellisher because that is what it was designed for. And it uniquely has the echo quilting where you can echo your shape and the advanced quilting, which gives you many more options. And in fact, let me show you that list before we go to our questions. So I'm actually going to switch to my quilt embellisher as the default so I can point to the icons up here. So the my quilt embellisher software, all of these icons here, there's 6 of them. Those are all your different types of quilting stitches. So if I click on this first one that says texture, you can see that I've got this long list of options and I can choose from any of these and it'll fill that shape that I have selected. Okay, so you can see that I've got that, and all of them can be adjusted. If you don't like the quilting to be that tight, you can increase this number to get that quilting a little bit further out. That right there's way. And then you've got stippling option. We already saw that, but the advanced stippling you can see is another extremely long list of quilting fills. So when you select one of these, it creates that quilting fill in a repeat pattern, and then you can adjust how you want that quilting, either if you want it more open or closer together. The other thing that you can do with these fills, if you use your shape tool and you click on the quilting fill, you can change the direction of the quilting. So I'm going to actually hide my block here in the background so we can see what's happening. So I'm going to choose my shape tool and I'm going to click on my quilting here. And there's actually a line in the center that's a yellow line. And if I change that direction of that line, you can see that my quilting changes directions as well. Let me hide this design. Maybe you can see it even better. So let me choose my shape tool here again. And so that yellow line is your angle line. And that's what I moved to change the direction of the fill. So isn't that cool? So that's in Perfect Embroidery Pro and in my quilt embellisher. So, okay, so let's see if we have any questions before we go on to the other ways to create quilting around your design as well. So I'm going to back up and just look for, if you do have questions, if you'll start your question with the question marks, it just helps me pick it out easier. Like Miss Callie Henderson here. Thank you so much for doing that. See how easy it was for her to pick that out. She said, would you recommend to quilt prior to making the applique block or make the block first? So me personally, I like to put the applique on the fabric because I don't want to see the back of the applique on the quilt. And then I like to make a quilt sandwich and then quilt through those 3 layers. Now, the quilting would then go around that embroidery and you would see no quilting on the back where your applique design is. But I just don't want to see the back of the applique or an embroidery design on the back of my quilt. I just want to see quilting. So I usually stitch the applique or the embroidery design on my fabric, whatever that's going to be, my quilting fabric. And then I incorporate that into my block and then into a larger quilt and then layer that for my quilting. But Callie, I can honestly say that is a personal preference. If you want to do it through all 3 layers, Eileen has a patented method of doing that called stipple, where the applique is a run stitch outline. And so the applique stitches are just run stitches, which is what your quilting stitches are. So in that method, going through all 3 layers is actually really easy to do and very fast. So, and then it's looks great on the back with your applique stitches going through. So, and then Sandy said, how do I eliminate the small section of the line slice tool and any way that works? So how to eliminate a small section of a line using the slice tool or any way that works. Okay, so to eliminate a small section of the stitches, what you're really going to use is not the slice tool. Slice tool is really for artwork. And so to eliminate stitches in a certain area, Sandy, you would want to use your shape tool or either the stitch tool to remove those stitches. And when we go back over, I can show you that as well. So, and if I forget, remind me, Sandy. It won't hurt my feelings one bit if you have to tell me again. And Vicky said, sorry about coming in late. What program is Ashley using? So I am using several different ones, Vicky. So right now, Perfect Embroidery Pro and My Quilt Embellisher, but I'm going to move on to creating quilting around your embroidery in My Quilt Planner and My Block Piecer here in just a bit, and then we'll see drawing on the screen as well. So I'm trying to find this topic in all of our software, or as many as I can, so that you might be able to accomplish these tasks that we're doing in several different software. So, and then Debbie said the same thing, what software? So right now, My Quilt Embellisher and my Perfect Embroidery Pro software are the 2 that I've used so far, Debbie. So when you stitch this out in the quilt out on a quilt block, is the back look good? Yes. And so because it's just run stitches, and with these fill stitches, that's why we have some of those broken lines that I mentioned. We want that run stitch around the outside because the software is trying to do the stitches or create the stitches in an order, a path where it doesn't have a lot of stops, jumps, and tie offs. So whenever you do this type of quilting, it's trying to quilt without stopping and tying a knot. So you may have 1 or 2 knots on the back, but because it's run stitches, it's still going to look nice on the front and the top. So, and then Debbie says, is this considered quilt as you go? It doesn't have to be. It certainly could be, Debbie. You could create the quilting for 1 block and then go ahead and quilt that 1 block and then assemble that into a larger quilt. But if you already have your quilt assembled and say it already has the embroidery on there, like my little pine cone design, if you've already embroidered on it and you have the design, which if you embroidered it, you should have the design, then you can bring the design and in the software, create the quilting, and then just don't stitch the design again. So it doesn't have to be a quilt as you go method. It could be sandwiching your quilt and creating the quilting design and then just moving your hoop and quilting as well. So, and then Sandy said, last week I saw the end of the technique that I want to try, but I don't know how to find it. It was cutting some lace and rolling it away from the background in the frame. It was cutting some lace and rolling it away from the background and the frame. So if you're talking about the busted canvas that we did on Facebook between friends last week, so that was actually a technique that we just did with a canvas and embroidery, and you can find that on our Between Friends. I'll see if our team member can post the link to our YouTube channel so that you can find that Between Friends episode and go back and take a look at that. Another really great question. So, and then is that Toby maybe? And so that what do you use if you don't have a typical shape? I am doing a quilt that with the shell from AccuQuilt. So you can bring in images for the design that you are trying to create. So if you don't have that exact shape of a built-in block, you can bring in an image. You can draw shapes. You can yeah, I think that's probably the best way. So like if you bring in an image, then you have something to trace. I feel like that's probably the best way to do that if it's a shape that you don't have. And you have drawing tools in Dime software, so you can create a lot of different shapes, and the outline tool allows you to create that custom shape around something as well. So can I bring in a purchased quilt design to go around the quilting to go around an embroidery design? Would I do it with one of the quilt software programs? So a purchased quilt design is a embroidery file that has already been digitized the way that it is. So if you want to go around a quilting with or around an embroidery design with a quilt design you purchase, you would essentially be removing the stitches around the embroidery design. And I'll show you what I mean, because that will also answer the question that we had from Sandy about eliminating a small section of the design. So so let me go back over to my software, and then I'm going to start a new work page here, and then I'm going to let me find a design. So I'm going to do File and Open, and I'm going to go to my C drive, and then I'm going to look for a design that is not native to our software. So I have some Amelie Scott designs, and so let me just go and grab one of these designs, and I'll show you what I mean. And so I'm just going to grab like this large one, PES file, and then open that. Okay, so if I wanted this design to go around an embroidery design, so let me just grab something to come in the center here. Flowers don't necessarily go with our Christmas theme, but that's okay, or our holiday theme. Okay, so in this instance, this design is run stitches, and I can't just make it go around. You would have to delete these stitches that are behind this bird here. And so I'm going to move the bird to the back so my stitches are on top so that I can see them. And I'm also going to put my lock on, and by having my lock on means that I won't accidentally delete my bird, or I can create an outline around the bird so then I know where I want my stitches to go. And actually maybe that's the thing to do. Let's unlock it and let's create an outline around it. So I'm going to do my utility, create outline, preview, okay, and then I can fill that shape with a color, and then I can either hide my bird, delete it, whatever I want, but I'm just going to hide it so that we don't see it. So I need to delete all stitches that are in that shape here. So I'm going to make my bird a lighter color so that I can see my stitches, and I'm going to send him backwards so that my stitches are on top. Okay, so this is just an easy way to do this. So now these are already run stitches, so that to delete these stitches, you're going to have to use like your shape tool, and then you can select and delete these stitches here. And when I hit my right mouse click, or I do my right mouse click, you can see that I'm removing them. Okay. Another thing that you can do is move these shapes. So I can actually pull this to the outside if I want, so that I don't just have a hole, that it's actually going to run around my design. And so I'm doing this also with my shape tool. And now you can see that my design is going around my bird. So I'm gonna hide my bird so you can see what I mean. So you can see I've created a hole there. And so that's what you're going to do to edit these stitches. So your shape tool is a really great way to edit them. You can also use your stitch tool. So let me go over to Perfect Embroidery Pro, because this is a tool. So the shape tool is in My Quilt Embellisher or Perfect Embroidery Pro. But to see the stitches here, so when I click the stitches tool and I click, you can see that I can see I'm clicking on the individual stitches. And so whenever I select one and I press the delete on my keyboard, it's actually removing that stitch. So I'm just pressing delete, and then I'm going to do a right mouse click, and that'll set that. And so you can see that I'm actually deleting it that way. I prefer doing the shape tool because then I can do something like this to move the stitches around. So, and then that's just my start and stop point. I'm going to move that out of the way so I can grab these points. And you can either delete those points or move them. And so the same is true here. So maybe I want to delete all of these stitches here, and then I can also select them and move them to the edge of the outline of my bird. So this is actually, you know, quite tedious. It's nice to create the design in the software with the fill stitches, and these type of designs here you might want to use for when you're doing your all over quilting and not quilt around a design. But it doesn't mean that it's not doable. Pretty much anything that you set your mind to, you could do it to quilt around that design. But these designs that come in, these are already machine files, so they're not native to our software. And so that's how you would need to edit those files. So it's just a little bit different, but hopefully that helps and answers your question there for bringing in designs. Now let's go to some of the other programs. So I'm going to do My Quilt and My Quilt Planner next. So My Quilt Planner is a program. Oh, I got to switch back to inches. Some things I like metrics and some things I like inches. So My Quilt Planner is a program that allows you to enter your quilt information, and it builds this virtual quilt for you so that you can audition your quilting designs. So, oh, and I don't want any sashing. So I wanted 0 there, 0 there. And then I'm going to do a 3-inch border. And you can see that it's building my quilt as I'm answering the question. So this would be information you would put in about your quilt. And maybe you already have this embroidered and you just want to create the design around it. So I'm going to color code this. Whenever you color code in My Quilt Planner, you're basically telling the software everywhere the color is the same, I want you to repeat the design. Everywhere the color is different, I want to put a different design. So the interior here, I'm going to do all the same design, and I'm going to reduce my opacity to 10 to lighten it up just so we can see on top of it. Okay. So this is a quilt planning software where you can bring in a quilt design. Let me bring in one that's built in here. And then you can fit that. I'm going to use the fit to cell here. And you can see that this is the only design on the screen. I'm going to move it out of the way. And when I put it in any one of these cells, it shows a preview in the other cells. It's a planning technique, so I don't have to put copy and paste all those different times. Now, most of the time we're planning for like an edge-to-edge type method like you see here, where maybe our quilting design is going to go over our entire center area and we don't have any applique or embroidery. But what if have embroidery in here? So there's a couple of different things that you can do. You can load a image of a file that has your that's your quilt. So I'm going to choose file and load backdrop. And I've got some already saved quilts here. So let me see what I've got that we can work with. Actually, this right here is a great one because I have embroidery already in those corner pieces here. And so I'm going to, now that that has come in, that's my backdrop, I need to define the scale. And this area here is a like a 10 by 10, and actually that's a diamond shape. Let me do an undo. Let me see if I've got one that's not diamond, since I've already got this built, so that it will look like it should. So maybe this one. That's still kind of diamond too. So we'll do it. We'll do it anyway. So I'm going to bring it in. And then now you can see that it actually does fit into my block. So that actually worked out in my favor. So happy accident here. And so, but you see how the image, it already has the butterflies on this quilt. If you wanted to create quilting around this with my quilt embellisher, you can strategically place your designs if you've got designs that'll fit around the edges. So in Quilted planner, we have built-in designs, and there are some single designs like that you see here that would work really well. And there you can just look through here, like some of these square designs might work. This one actually probably would be really good to go around the corners. And so I'm actually going to put this around the corner here, and I'm going to make it a little bit larger. Let's zoom in so we can see what's happening. And so this particular design here, I'm going to just make it bigger and just kind of position it in the corner. Do you see that this one over here is doing the same exact thing? And now if I copy and paste this, I'm going to copy, paste, mirror image. And then I've got one for this corner. And so I selected this design because I knew that it would go in the corners nicely and then kind of not interfere with my embroidery. And that one's a little bit big, so maybe I'd want to do a little bit smaller. And of course, I'd want them to match, so I would make sure that these were all the same size. But now let's select both of those. I'm going to do my bottom align so that they're even, and then I'm going to copy, paste, and mirror both of them and mirror image or flip, and then I can slide this one down here, okay? So this is a way, and it may not be the exact design you want. I'm just using some to give you an example. And you can see we already have this embroidery here. And by using an image, I have created a design to go around that block. Now, if I wanted to do something different in this block, then I need to go back and color them differently. But what I've done here is I have brought in 4 designs that I can position around my embroidery. Okay. And now let's go undo. I'm going to do a lot of undos and go back to just our quilt layout that doesn't have my picture behind it to show you that you do not have to take a picture of your quilt if you have that embroidery design. Okay. So that embroidery design was a butterfly design. So let me go back up here and grab that design, and we'll bring that in. So if you have embroidered it, then you should have the design because you own it, you embroidered it. So you can bring that into this program as well. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to grab my butterfly design. I don't even remember which one it was, maybe this one. And then drag that onto my workspace here. And even though this is an embroidery file, you can see that it's showing a shadow. So because it's just showing me what I have in my block that's going to repeat everywhere. So I'm going to go over to my quilt planner, and I'm going to just say to center in the cell because that's probably centered on my block. So now I'm just using this as a design element, not as the embroidery file. And if we did the same thing and created a design that goes around it. So I'm going to go back to my files. And this time, let's just look for something different. So this one right here is the example I used in my picture. That would work great. And I can put that in the corner here. My quilt planner feature, I can say fit to cell, so it'll make it as large as possible. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy, paste, and then I'm going to mirror image and flip that one. And then that is over there on the other side. So now what I've done is the same thing. I just created a file that I know is going to avoid my embroidery. Even though my embroidery is already on my quilt, I just use this as my template so that I could make sure my design avoids it. And now I would delete that. And now I've created this quilting here that's going to go around my embroidery. And really all I'm embroidering is this one shape, and then I would repeat it all those times to get the entire center of my quilt done. So with my quilt planner, that's a way that you can create quilting around your blocks. So completely different program, completely different purpose, completely different way of creating that quilting around your block. So now let me show you my block piecer. My block piecer, since we're talking about those built-in blocks into my block piecer and my quilt embellisher, all of these blocks that you see here, these blocks you can actually use to audition quilting designs. You can use it to create quilting designs. This one might be a good one here. I'm going to select it. So if I just get rid of the brown part of this block and I select everything here and then right mouse click, convert to a run stitch. Now I just created a quilting design that was shaped like that block. And maybe you have an embroidery design if you want. So it depends on if your design would fit there, how big your block is that you're creating the quilting. But here's what I did. So let me go back here. So here's our same block again. Now with my block piecer, I'm going to choose a different block. Let's go back to, I'm going to choose these little, this one here, and I'm actually going to resize it. And these shapes here, I can actually manipulate and just put them in the corners and make some quilting here. So these here, and if I select them, right mouse click, convert to a run stitch. So you can create quilting designs that way. Okay, where you're just putting a little quilting that is the shape of your block. Now, if you don't want it to be shaped exactly like a triangle, I'm going to get rid of these two, delete and delete. Now, let's zoom in and take a look at editing these shapes right here. So if I use my shape tool, I can kind of pull in these sides, and it's still my triangle shape, but I'm just making it shaped a little bit different. And I'm going to color this. I'm going to say, don't fill this. Let's just make it an outline. Okay. And now you can see that I've got these little loops in my artwork. I'm going to pull this one so that it kind of loops right there. And now I can right mouse click, convert to run. Okay. And this could be a quilting design that I put down here in the corner. Maybe want to rotate it around so that it kind of is the orientation that we need. Okay. Or I'm going to convert this one to a run stitch here. And let's do something a little bit different. If any of you have seen me in our events, I love to show this because I actually use this a ton when I'm creating. So I'm going to use my shape tool again, but in this time, instead of pulling this side in, I'm going to do an undo. I'm going to add a point, and that'll just let me kind of make a little bit of an arc. So I'm going to right mouse click, add point. This is my shape tool in my Quilt Embellisher, my block piecer, and Perfect Embroidery Pro will do this, add point. And now my quilting triangle is just a little bit different shape, right? And so you can use those built-in blocks to create shapes as well. And I clicked one too many times, so let's move that and go back here. So I'm essentially creating a quilting design out of the quilt block shapes, which you can also do with your artwork tool here. So I could have easily drawn a triangle with my artwork tool, right mouse click, convert to a run stitch, and use that to also go around, manipulate this shape, size. And your artwork tool, you've got lots of options. Triangle, diamond, star, rounded, that's a rectangle, ellipse or circle, rectangle, square, hexagon, leaf, heart, flower. And then the morph is actually only part of cut and stitch. But that's another way to create quilting designs. And my block piecer and my quilt embellisher has all of those blocks built in that you can just click to turn into a quilting design. Isn't that cute? And it's a quilting design shaped exactly like a block. Okay. So now I've got one more way that I'm going to show you. And so let me do that, and then we will answer any questions. So I'm going to undo all of these and just get rid of, in fact, let me just delete them over here. Might be the easiest thing to do. So now another thing you can do, and we have tons of Dime software that has this built-in artwork tool that has a pen option to draw, and it has the convert to run stitch. So when you select your pen tool, if you press the F on your keyboard, F as in Frank, or F for Foxtrot, you're going to get a pen tool, which will allow you to draw. Now, I'm a horrible drawer. I do have a stylus for my computer that I actually do better with. And so, but I'm just moving my mouse. That's why it's so horrible. We can come back and fix that. So don't worry about that. And then we're just drawing this swirly little shape here. And then when I get back to here, I'm going to press the C for cat and it'll close my shape. Now, if I go back to my shape tool, remember we can edit these or move these. So I'm just going to move them in. I accidentally made that one curved, which I didn't mean to, but oh well, it's fine. And then I'm going to move these points in too so that they are in my my design here. So just move those and maybe delete that one. That's a little funky. And now that's just something that I drew. I could right mouse click, convert to a run stitch. And so you can create quilting designs in that manner as well. And then you can always edit them once you're done. So like this one that didn't make a pretty curve, I can right mouse click and say, make that smooth and work with my Bezier handles to kind of make that look a little better. I could make this bigger of a loop and smooth those points as well. So right mouse click smooth will make that look, you know, more better than what I drew. And here, maybe I just delete that one because that's really not a necessary point there. And then I get kind of a smoother. So you can edit these points and create your own custom quilting design with the drawing. So if I head back over here, so we saw Perfect Embroidery Pro with the fills. My Quilted Publisher with fills. These are fill quilting designs. And then My Quilt Planner, we used that to create the design around either an image or the design. My Block Piecer, using your built-in quilting blocks to convert to run. And then, oh, SFX, I forgot that one. I'll go show you that one really quick too. So it's really easy and it works very much like those quilting fills. But then the last one there was the one that I showed you. So let me show you SFX really quick before we do our questions. So sorry, I bounced all over here. Okay, so if I open up a new workspace, or actually let me go back to that same block, that's probably the easiest, and we'll just delete our quilting here. Okay, so now in SFX, same thing. I've got my design. I have an artwork outline and an artwork interior. Okay, and so SFX, I'm going to make that default so we have those icons on the toolbar so you can see what I'm clicking. The embossed option here, if you select your artwork and click embossed, it gives you these options for these quilting fills, and click OK, and it's going to fill around the design. I'm going to turn my design back on. And this is meant for embossing. It's meant for flattening out fabric, but you can go over here and increase that pattern length so that it is much more open. Okay, so the embossed fill is the way that you can do that. Now, if you want the waves, you can use your chenille fill or either the mylar fill. Now, this was going to take just a minute to generate. There we go, because it's so close together. Now, mylar is a denser design because it's really close together, covering our mylar. But if I increase this density, you basically are just getting run stitches that are further apart. So that's our mylar fill. So the process is the same. You want to create your outline shape, create your outline around your design, and those two, you will use the embossed fill, and it will automatically combine them, or you can use your combine tool. So, okay, I know that was a lot. So let's see if we have any other questions. So sometimes I feel like I'm here just to confuse and complicate. So I think I may have done that really well today. So, and I think we answered Toby's question already, talked about bringing in the image and things like that. So, and then Marcia says, can I bring in a purchase design and go around it? We talked about that. So I'm just making sure I got all these covered. And then Sandy says, when I remove the stitches, the entire design disappears. So you might have to ungroup it. So try ungrouping it, Sandy. That might be the other thing that you need to do. And then you're just deleting certain points with your shape tool or your stitches tool. And then Connie says, did the utility remove overlap? Work with the quilting stitches. It does not. It works with a complex fill like your tatami fill, so it doesn't work with these. And so what you really want to do is just cut out that shape to begin with to create the quilting fill around it. And then she said, I also have vintage hand embroidery pillowcase that I'm recycling as a table runner. Would I scan or JPEG artwork to quilt around it? Yes, absolutely, Marcia. If you take a photograph of that, and then in your photograph, put something in the photograph that you know what size it is. So whether it's the band of the pillowcase or the like a ruler or something, so that you can define the scale to make sure you're getting that right. So another really great question. And then Joy said, when you try the Dime software, haven't purchased it, I have heard you say that you can do everything but save. Does that mean that I cannot stitch out what I've tried? That is exactly right. You can create, you can play with the software, but you cannot save it to a file. If we allowed you to save it, then you would have no need to purchase the software. So the trial version is so that you can play with it, but if you want to embroider your design, you have to be able to save it, and then you would need to own it. So, so it quilt it. So, oh, I like that. So it quilt it. Is it Quilt Embellisher that draws the line around the center design? So actually we have several programs that have the create outline feature built in, and those are, I actually have that in my slides here. So the create outline feature is in Perfect Embroidery Pro, My Quilt Embellisher, My Block Piecer, My Lace Maker, Pam, Patch and Applique Maker, Cut and Stitch, or SFX. The combine tool is me combining those two artworks together. So that's the programs that has the combine tool, which is PEP, My Quilt Embellisher, My Block Piecer, Vintage Embroidery, My Lace Maker, Pam, Quilt, Cut and Stitch, and SFX. And then the artwork draw, which is the pen tool, and then the convert to run are the other ones that you need. So pretty much all of the same software have all of those features. So any of those, you will be able to create the quilting files in some manner that I showed today. So, so that, hopefully that helps you. And even though we're about to end here, you can always stop and take a picture of this, pause it, go back, rewatch the replay to be able to take a screenshot of what software has what. So, and then Laurel says, I'm new to your video. Hey, Laurel, welcome. Is this a design software that you use and save your embroidery machine files? Yes, it is. So these are all Dime has tons of different embroidery software. I think we're up to like 15 different pieces now. They all do something a little bit different. But they all work together. So I try to show features and how to do things in as many as I can find. And yes, you would install this on your computer, create your quilting or embroidery design, or edit it, save it for your machine format, and then stitch it out. So yeah, absolutely. And then Marcia said, today's episode is just what I needed to complete some Christmas gifts. And that's what I was hoping, Marcia. Marcia, thank you so much for saying that, because I know that quilting is a big thing that we do around the holidays. So can it be rewatched? Carolyn, absolutely. If you go to Dime's YouTube channel called Designs in Machine Embroidery, and look for the Software Success playlist, and you can watch all of the past episodes, including this episode once we're done airing. So, and then Mickey Smith says, when you get the scissor emblem, when you are changing artwork to fill in SFX, why am I getting that? So when you're changing from artwork to fill, the commands icon is what causes the scissors to come on. So over on the left-hand side, look for the little command bubble, and you can toggle those off and on, Mickey. I'm not sure why it's happening automatically. So I'll do some testing and see if I can figure out and see if there's any thing that would make it happen automatically. So, and Mickey, I know that you know how to find me over on the Facebook group. And so if you ask that question over there, then I will do some testing and then I could always respond to it on our user group. And I see our Dime team member posted the link to the playlist of Software Success. Thank you so much for doing that so that everyone can get back to this presentation. So Software Success is every first and third Tuesday of the month. So the next time you will see me for Software Success is December the 3rd. And in this session, I'm going to talk about freestanding embroidery. Now, I didn't say freestanding lace because you can also make an applique freestanding. And so I'm going to talk about how we can create. I want to show freestanding lace because another really big holiday type stitching file. So we're going to talk freestanding lace, but I'm also going to talk about how you can make like maybe an ornament or something out of a applique and have it be freestanding. I got some tips for adjusting it for the stitch out. So we'll see you back here December the 3rd for freestanding embroidery. And as always, I like to say, I know I used a lot of different pieces of Dime software. We have them on our website. If you don't have any of them and you're interested, you can also try any of them before we buy, as we said. But I always urge you to check with your local Dime dealer to see if they carry our software. I would recommend buying from them. Supporting your local dealer is something that I am really supportive of, that I really do hope that everybody does. Local businesses, it's really hard to stay in business these days, but also buying locally means that you have a person that you can also go to and ask questions to help you with your software. And you also get all of the help and the free education that we provide at Dime. So check out your local dealer for any of those programs. And until we have another Software Success, I'll say bye for now. And thank you all for being here.